Okay, I'm going to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a great Seiko review for you. A little bit about the brand. They were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key common characteristics and sound language. You're looking for something that you can wear every day. You're really just going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. This is from the Prospex line, particularly this is one of the Alpinists, and it's been kind of affectionately called the Baby Alpinist. This is from their JDM releases, so it's from the Japanese domestic market. And this is the SBDC137, and it's basically an adventurer's watch extension of their original line dating all the way back to the late 1950s. And it also is a return to their traditional non-internal compass bezel format. You can actually get this from Sakura watches for about roughly under $500, around $495. Of course, the US dollar to Japanese yen rate may fluctuate from time to time, but it is very attainable and affordable, and it's a bit of kind of an utilized gem. You just don't see too many of these out in the wild, and I think if more people knew about them, they probably would pick them up. It's actually also featured, for those of you that are wondering, it's featured on an UncleStraps, formerly known as Uncle Seiko. It's an UncleStraps Jubilee bracelet, and this is their latest and greatest, so it has milled end links as well as a milled clasp, which is outstanding. So really excited to share this with you guys. So let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys, check that out. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, special thanks goes out to Uncle Seiko, or I'm sorry, UncleStraps, again, sans name change, for providing this bracelet here for, for everybody to get their hands on, because there's a reason why I haven't really featured this, this line, the Alpinist line, on a Jubilee. It's because most of the Jubilees that were made were really either oversized or under quality. This one actually hits all of the right notes in terms of proportion. It feels OEM. Even check out that buckle. It is very nice, but there's still improvements. Things like you can see here, the little overhang lip now that covers that. That's a trick from Grand Seiko. That's also made it down into, their Presage line with certain models like the Sharp Edge. So, excuse me. So really, really happy to see that here. This is actually made for the traditional Alpinist case. So that would be your, your SARB 017, as well as the modern Prospex Alpinists that are out there. But for the baby Alpinist, you will have to use slimmer spring bars, which actually are included, which is great. You actually get two sets of spring bars, one to standard size and then another slightly slimmer. So if you're whether you're putting this on a standard Alpinist or a baby Alpinist, it will work perfectly. But I think it really works on this particular baby Alpinist. This is the SBDC137, and it's fantastic, guys. I love this thing. Yes, I have already reviewed the baby Alpinist on the channel. It's actually one of the more viewed videos, but this particular layout for me is just outstanding. They do a really amazing job with this textured dial. Check that out. It's textured, but it also has a great sunray feature. And of course, it has that kind of tropical gilded style. And I really, really dig that. Check. Oh my goodness. The color pattern here, it's a way that it just kind of evokes a very vintage aesthetic without, I think, making it look too dated. I think it does a really good job of kind of balancing that. And I really, really enjoy the looks of this one. But in terms of some of the general specs, you're going to get a 38mm diameter, a 12.9 millimeter thickness, which is actually hidden really well by these beautiful case contours. The lug to lug is only 45.9. millimeters, and then of course it is brushed and polished stainless steel. You're also getting a domed sapphire with inner AR coating. It's a single dome, so when you get it at very harsh extreme angles, there will be some distortion there, so you'll be getting a little bit of visual play at harsh angles, but I think it does suit the watch really well in terms of having a slight dome versus if they were to do flat. Also, it does have this great, high polished bezel there, which is fixed. And of course, it ties in really nicely to the high polished accents, whether it be on the side of the case or down the center links of this outstanding Jubilee style bracelet. The movement inside, it is a screw down crown, which is great. So you're getting 200 meters of water resistance, very typical for this line of watches, the Alpinists. And then inside, the movement you have is the Seiko automatic 6R35, which gives you a 70-hour power reserve, a 3 hertz sweep, which is 21,600 vibrations per hour, and then typically an accuracy somewhere in between minus 15 and plus 25 seconds per day. It does also have a Sprawn 510 mainspring. This particular unit actually is fairly new to the collection, so I can't really say too much in terms of its accuracy, but like most 6Rs that I've tested, it's actually running really well. And again, this isn't like time grapher, this is me just wearing them out in the world. I think a few different YouTubers have kind of found that these don't do great on the time grapher, but somehow magically do a lot better on the wrist when you're trying to keep time. So I can't argue with that because I've been very, very lucky. I think there's only been one or two 6R35 movements that I've ever had to, feel some level of disappointment in. And the one that it was, I actually just popped open the case back and did a manual adjustment, and now it is running about, I think, plus 3 to 4 seconds a day. This one is still somehow in some level of a honeymoon period where it's running closer to about 2 seconds per day. Fast. So I prefer that. I'd rather it run fast than slow, but it's not running outrageously fast. But of course, when it comes to positional variance, sometimes people have had some issues in terms of inconsistency, and kind of timekeeping. But for me, somebody who has a lot of watches, gets a lot of them in the rotation, for me wearing it for a day, it's totally fine. And if I need to hack the seconds hand again before I need to wear it the following day, then I don't mind that at all. Now, getting into this gorgeous dial, guys. Wow. I'm surprised this isn't some level of a special edition because of just the texture there. That graininess is really, really fun. It actually reminds me a lot of my Rock Face European exclusive limited edition Alpinist. Actually, I think it might be as a limited. It might have been special edition. It's probably a limited. Seiko these days. But this one is not. So it does have that really cool texture. But of course, instead of it being kind of a gray silvery tone, it is this nice warm kind of chocolatey brown tone. And it's fantastic. And honestly, it does render. If you look at it right now, like without a lot of light on the dial, it renders pretty close to black, even some maybe hues of greenish gold in there. And then once you get some light on it, it really lights up. But the crazy thing is it stays very legible because of the color choices for those indexes. Now, everything is printed on this particular model. It would have been nice to see applied or at least kind of raised indices that are punched in through the back, like you would get with your standard kind of compass bezel equipped Alpinists. But I will say that, in terms of differentiation, it works here. Maybe if I had was able to choose, it would be nice to have, some polished gold as well, but you're still getting that nicely applied golden Seiko logo, so can't complain too much. You're actually getting some really nicely brushed golden cathedral hands, which are also loomed. And then, of course, you're getting those loom pips around the outer minute track. So those numerals are not loomed. It's just the outer track, as you can see here, all the way around, there's little loom plops, which is very typical to the Alpinist line and kind of a staple of their style. It is also, like I mentioned before, 200 meters or 20 bar water resistant, 20 millimeter lug. So this is going to be a real strap monster. And then we get into the bracelet, guys, and this thing is awesome. It's solid links, solid end links, and then it does have push pin connectors, so not screw links. I'd say that's probably the one thing that folks might complain about, but honestly, push pin connectors are super easy to swap out and they never back out. And honestly, in terms of strength, they absolutely do the job. Not quite as prestigious as if they were to use something else, but honestly, I'm somebody who doesn't even mind pin and collars, so a friction pin doesn't hurt as long as it's done in a really nice, clean way, which it is done. And then you're also getting a great clasp milled folding section here, and then you're getting 2 points of micro adjustment, which is great. Well, I guess it's technically 1 point of micro adjustment. But the nice thing is, because this is a Jubilee style bracelet, you're getting shorter links, which means you can get a really great fit. So with that said, let's actually see how this fits on the wrist. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7¼ to 7½ inch wrist, this wears really well, just how you'd expect for anything within that Alpinist line. Looks really fantastic, and of course if I was to bring my wrist a little bit closer to the camera, you'd get a lot of lens distortion and it would make it seem a little oversized. So what I'll do is I'll keep my wrist right down here and I will tighten the shot up a bit so you guys can get a closer look without getting a bad aspect ratio in terms of the way that this will appear. So as you can see, even with that bit of thickness there honestly, it's a sports watch. It has 200 meters of water resistance, screw down crown. So for me, I'm not bothered by the height one bit. But for those that are concerned, you can see that those beautiful contours and polished sides really do help make the watch appear much thinner, and you can see it lays nice and flat and hugs the wrist with those beautifully contoured and turned down lugs. And then you get into the bracelet and that great taper down to about 16 millimeters around the clasp. Very classic, very handsome, and I really dig that. So you guys can see wears really nicely. And then if I bring the shot back out a little bit there, guys, you can get an idea of how this is going to look, a little bit more arm in there. So with that said, let's go ahead, get this piece off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right. Interesting fact, this is going to give you blue tone loom, which is actually something that carries over from the other baby Alpinist watches that I have. So that's really cool because typically the Lumibrite is going to glow green, but very nice to see just some level of differentiation here. A little bit of thoughtful kind of update. And then when we get into some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be, coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, hanging out under the shade of a tree, or maybe just spending time in your favorite automobile. So just really nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to even include some harsh lighting here, which typically could expose any type of production defects. But you're going to see the light just glides beautifully over the brushing on this bracelet, and you're going to notice how really dynamic this dial is. So you're getting that texturing, you're also getting a sun ray pattern. I mean, this thing is gorgeous. I will say in certain lighting like this, let's say like really right there, you can get it to wash out a little bit, and it just picks up a little bit too much of the grainy nature, which is one of my main reasons for it would have been nice to have some applied indices here. But again, the rest of the baby Alpinist line is like this. You do use the printed dials, so for them to do that, it would really probably take a jump, because they do, at the end of the day, want to very much differentiate these. And for me, with the printed dial, you can really dress this one down. It really plays into the field watch aesthetic. But of course, for me, I do like this particular color combination anyway to really play into the more dressy style. I mean, this is can be even like a date just competitor with just how handsome this is and the beautiful warmth and textures that you're going to get from this dial. Again, this is somehow not a super popular model, and it's like, now that it's been out for a while, you can get them for, again, under $500, which is outstanding, especially considering everything you're getting, all the in-house qualities, all of the heritage that you would have got by paying brand new price for it. You can get it even cheaper now, and you can really take advantage of the US dollar being very strong. In terms of the exchange rate, if you are purchasing from the US, which most of my viewers are from the US, but big shout outs to the international audience, whether you be in the UK or with Japan or Germany, which are also some of my other kind of leading viewership areas. But you can see, very nice, again, very legible, and just that dial is fantastic. My gosh, look at that thing. So many different tones, the warmth, it just plays really, really well. And honestly, that kind of, more yellowish colorways when it comes to those hour markers really, I think, flows best here. It just gives you kind of these great root beer undertones. So very, very cool. All right, guys, but now into kind of closing thoughts. On the wrist, very sporty yet compact wear. So that's a nice thing. It's really kind of go anywhere, do anything, but elevated in the fact that it is quite dressy, and also, I should say, not is quite dressy, but can be quite dressy, especially within this combination. But it still feels like a sports watch. It still feels tough. It still feels like something, you're not going to worry about, whether you're kind of in the air, land, or sea situation, which is fantastic. In terms of model variants, there are tons of new Alpinist variations, out currently, and seemingly more to come. It seems like every year there's a new release. This one, again, is not a new release. It's just one that I feel like flew under the radar, that I've had my eye on for a while. And with the prices dropping, I just couldn't resist featuring this for you guys before the end of the year. In terms of comparable models, I could even look to my own watch box and, Zen 556, when you're getting that 200 meters of water resistance, very versatile tool watch. This is, I think, a little bit dressier, but there are some dressier 556 options. Like I have the 556IB, which is the blue with the applied indices, and I have it on the fine link bracelet, so it is quite dressy. But it's a lot more expensive. And typically you're not getting Zen for below kind of full list price. Also, on the other side, you could think of something like maybe the Boulder Venture, which is going to be much less versatile. It's probably the other end of the spectrum, pure tool watch kind of deal. Or maybe even from another micro brand that I really love is the Traska Summiteer, which you're going to get hard coating. Those are pretty hard to get right now because they're made in very small batches, which sell out pretty fast. But you're going to get, I think a similar use case in terms of screw down crown, water resistance, something that's versatile, very handsome. So yeah, from the microbrand side of things, the Boulder Venture, Traska Summiteer would be probably direct comparables, similar price points. And then, of course, I think the biggest competitor here is the standard Alpinist. And if it's the standard Alpinist, you got to also think Hamilton khaki field territory. So in terms of this versus any of those, I think in terms of it against the standard Alpinist, that is more of an asymmetrical, but also more iconic layout. And then the Hamilton, I'd say, is even, I guess, more vanilla. It's a great watch. I own a few Hamilton khakis, and I have a Murph on the way, the Murph 38, which I'll probably do a comparison with this watch with, because of just the, the common threads of having the cathedral hands and within kind of a dressy, vintage-esque sports watch. So, you know, those are different. There's different price points for things within the khaki line. There's different price points for things within the Alpinist line. But I think they're good comparables in terms of you're getting something classic, something that's still, you know, relatively affordable. You know, some would even say cheap. When you get into some of the other, you know, rungs of what's available out there, especially you start getting into some real gray market territory. But for me, guys, the bottom line, the Baby Alpinist has done, you know, I think it's been a great successor to the Sarg 009 or the Sarg 011, you know, in terms of being that kind of Seiko iconic field watch. But it has the bonus of, you know, having double the water resistance, you know, and in this particular variation, I think it really plays into the dressy side, and it's, you know, I'd say less of an explorer alternative and more of kind of a Datejust competitor, except it's going to be even tougher. So I think that's really, really cool, and I, you know, hats off to Seiko for continuing to, you know, put out stuff that's really desirable, funky, and different. And it also, at the same time, is pulling from their own internal backlog of really, really fun designs that mean a lot to a lot of different collectors. So with that said, if you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.